Do you have an emergency fund? And what about teaching your kids about money and the lessons around it? Welcome to episode 3 of the 3-part series, Mastering Your Money. Today, we're focusing on emergency funds and teaching long-term money skills. By the end of the episode, you'll have practical strategies to plan for the future and create financial confidence. I'm thrilled to welcome back my guest today, Tina Filion. Tina works with Canada's Credit Counselling Society, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping Canadians regain financial stability through education, practical tools, and one-on-one support. Welcome back, Tina, to part 3.
Hello, good to see you again.
Now, today we're going to talk a little bit about emergency funds, saving habits, and teaching our children about financial literacy. So let's start with emergency funds. Why are emergency funds so essential?
Basically comes down to life happens. It comes for us all. So it could be tires blow or kids get sick or hours get cut. An emergency fund turns those moments from financial emergencies into something that's more manageable for us. And we know that it will happen. We just don't know what or when. This helps prevent one step forward, 2 steps back in terms of debt. And we're offered more stability and peace of mind to stay on track.
And so what's the easiest way to start your emergency fund?
What I recommend is to create a dedicated account and start really small. So even if it's $10 a week, that builds the habit. And that's the big thing that we're trying to do is build the habit. So even if you have, let's say you have a setback sometime and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't even put the money here. Well, even if you're just putting $1 in there, 50 cents, I don't care what it is. Just put that in there. We're just building the habit. It's still progress. Momentum matters more than the amount. Have your short-term, medium, and long-term goals laid out to stay motivated.
Yeah, and that's why when we talked about budgeting in part 1, that's where budgeting is so important, because then it gives you a grasp and understanding of where your finances are at and how much you can actually dedicate to your emergency fund. How does having a small safety net really change your confidence when it comes to money?
When you have even $200 set aside, something shifts a little. You stop bracing for the next crisis and you can start planning more future focused. And the power in shifting that focus, you're taking action now and today, and you're getting that feeling of you're actively making progress and you have a plan.
If you're listening right now, do you have an emergency fund? And if you don't, is that something you can open in the next week or so? And Tina recommends opening it as an emergency fund on a completely separate account, not mixed in with anything else. Maybe it's time you do that. Let's talk about teaching money and financial literacy. I have a bone to pick here with the education system. Just on my own personal financial journey, I feel like I wasn't taught a lot about money. And I'm not going to blame the education system. I think also family has a lot of information that they should be passing down when it comes to financial literacy. I was much older and kind of left on my own to understand how money works, how credit works. And so that is one thing I do want to pass down to my children. We have open conversations about money and investing and budgeting. When we talk about money, why is financial literacy important for children and teens?
I think it speaks a lot to what you said is we want to avoid having the situation where we're getting into adulthood and we're just kind of figuring it out as we're going along and making these messy mistakes. Kids who learn about money early can grow into adults who make confident choices instead of fearful ones, and who can even plan for the future better than potentially we did. So, for example, I didn't learn about investing until probably 30. I didn't know much about it. But as we know with investing, the earlier we start, the better. So this has lifelong repercussions and it can help us avoid traps. So it's so important for sure.
I didn't learn about the rule of 72 when it comes to investing until much later on in life. And I kind of sat there. I work with a financial planner and she was talking to me about it. And she's like, Mandeep, like, why your face? You made a face. What's wrong? And I'm like, I had no idea that this is the mathematical equation to learn how to double your money when it comes to investments you make. And I just had this moment of like, this is the stuff I needed to learn possibly younger in life, because I think I would have started investing much earlier. How early can you start teaching kids about money?
I would say as soon as they are old enough to understand the concept of basically wanting something. Toddlers can learn simple trade-offs, or teens can learn about budgeting and some basics of investing, and raising them early to have a saving mindset as a matter of habit can help them as well. We can do that in different age appropriate ways. We can help coach them to set goals too, some short, some long. Definitely when they're younger, like little kids, maybe toddlers, I mean, it'd be shorter, smaller goals so that they get that instant gratification is more worthwhile with them. And then as they get older, is challenging them to progressively work through more and more challenging goals so that they do build that confidence and even that pride. I mean, I had my son who wanted a VR headset, and I mean, I don't have money for that, but I said, okay, that's fine. Like, let's make a plan for this. This is the cost, and here's your allowance. And then you also have, your gift money. So you can decide either to spend a bunch of it, or we can make this plan for your savings. And that was a really big accomplishment for him when he finally came to that day where he got to buy his VR headset. Like, he was so proud, and giving them those experiences is so wonderful and so empowering for them.
In that example, he understood what it took. It wasn't instant gratification, which unfortunately right now I feel we're in that society of instantaneous gratification. It took him time to build the momentum to be able to save his money. And I'm going to say, Tina, I bet you he took a moment even to himself. He may not have shared it and thought, is this worth it? Like, I've been working so hard for this. Is this even worth it? I'm sure there was a moment. Maybe he hasn't processed it or said it out loud, because I think about that when I'm making big purchases that I've saved up for. I say to myself, was all that pain worth it?
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I was at the dollar store recently, and I was just going through the aisles grabbing some stuff, and I saw a young mom give her child a financial lesson, and the child must have been about 6 years old, and the child picked up like 3 things they wanted to buy. And now the dollar store or Dollarama is no longer a dollar. Everything is $2, $3, $4, and she had a $5 bill that she had given him, and she was making him do the math that, okay, if this item is $3 and this item is $4, but you only have $5. So you got to decide now which one of these 2 items is more important to you that you want. And, she also factored in tax. I was like, hey, this is such a great lesson, because you're no longer the bad parent, saying, the child saying, I want to buy both items. You're like, here, these are the consequences of the decision that you have to make. And it's up to you, because you take the ownership. And then there's nobody else to talk about it, because, you can either come back with more money or decide to only buy one of these things. So I was just watching her, and I was like in awe. I'm like, that's such a good financial lesson. How can parents model financial responsibility?
One of the biggest things is kids are such good observers of us, for better or worse. So let your kids see you budgeting, saving, or talking calmly about money and decision making. Let them see that process. Kids learn more from what we do than what we tell them. And also let them make some mistakes now while the stakes are lower. So you're giving them that money. You can try to coach them on all these things, but if they want to do certain things with their money and later they're like, I don't have any money, I'll have them maybe reflect on that and how it might feel instead if they saved a little bit. That can be a really good learning opportunity. It's much better that they make mistakes now and they get to know that firsthand when they're younger than when you're older, when the stakes are much higher.
So how can parents turn everyday activities like grocery shopping or allowances into money lessons?
For little kids, it can be things like sorting coins. It's definitely one of the lost arts, I would say, as we've all turned to plastic. Letting them play around with coins, totaling them up when they're smaller, or like you said, between 2 treats with that certain amount of choosing between 2 treats with that certain amount that's been allocated to them. It can help them with that concept as well. For school-age kids, for example, if you have allowance, you can ask them to use a jar. One is a category for spending, one's a category for saving, one is for gifting or sharing. So if they're thinking like, yeah, I'd love to give grandma a gift at this occasion, then that gifting or sharing category can help build that, and can also as well build the sense of pride and generosity too. And for teens, if you want them to practice a little bit with, let's say, the concept of credit cards, you can get them like a prepaid credit cards. It's not one that's actually using credit. It's just you're loading it up with, let's say, $50. Well, they know $50 is on there, so they can practice. Then they can see, oh, how far does $50 actually get you? So that's one of the things. Practicing with different apps, having them set some of those savings goals can help as well, especially as we start to get into discussions about post-secondary and investing. Certainly that's one of the things that we can use as well.
Because post-secondary is now, it's expensive. And the idea of, I've had this conversation with my kids and explaining to them that I'm not against anybody leaving the lower mainland. However, there's additional cost to that, right? You're paying rent, you're paying food, and is that money better allocated somewhere else in their life? So, and thinking about like student loans and then graduating and then having a student loan that you now have to repay over time. I feel like when it comes to university and going away, that is an honest and open conversation you should have with your kids, and the expectation on if you go the route of student loans, who's paying that student loan at the end, and what that financial forecast will look for that student once they're out earning money. We don't live in the economy anymore where you can just kind of move out at age 21, 22. Staying at home is longer, and what that actually looks like, and whether or not moving away for university is going to be worthwhile in the end. If you listen to this 3-part series and you're thinking about debt and repayment strategies and emergency funds and teaching your kids about money can be overwhelming, what is one piece of advice or one thing you want listeners to take away from the 3-part series?
I would say definitely never hesitate to reach out for help. I think that it can be really intimidating to talk about money in our society, but it can be really helpful. We never know what our support systems might have in store. Some people might be just waiting to speak with someone who's also going through something. Like if we're thinking about the holidays, people's budgets are stretched and they might be a bit hesitant to talk about their budget for the holidays. But if you're all talking and realizing, oh my goodness, let's do this system instead, that can help each other as well. Another thing I would recommend is if you need professional assistance, again, you can reach out to the Credit Counselling Society or a nonprofit credit counselor. They can give you some guidance there as well, and it's completely free of judgment, and they're really kind and compassionate.
I really appreciate that. If you're listening right now, what's one of your important long-term financial goals? I want you to take a minute about it. Is it sending your kids away to post-secondary? Is it planning for retirement or an upcoming vacation? How can accountability, whether through a partner, family, or tracking system, help you achieve it? And what is one small action you can take today to move closer to your financial freedom? Thank you for joining us for part 3 of Mastering Your Money series. Today we focused on saving, emergency funds, teaching financial skills, and planning for long-term stability. Remember, financial freedom is built one small habit at a time. Start with one actionable step today, and your future self will thank you. I'd like to thank Tina from Canada's Credit Counselling Society that has tools and support for you in understanding your credit and how to achieve the goals you set out. I will have all the information in the show notes, and if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and continue the conversation over on Instagram or TikTok at Her Energy Unlocked Podcast. I cannot wait to hear from you. Until next time, remember, your energy is yours to reclaim, your story is yours to rewrite, and your next chapter is waiting. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.